What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 522 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, November 29, 2023. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. And what a weekend it was with Survivor Series, the CM Punk stuff, and literally the headline of last week's episode. I don't know what it's going to be this week. You guys know watching it right now. I don't while recording it at this exact moment. But the headline for last week's episode was, will CM Punk show up at Survivor Series to answer an open challenge from Shinsuke Nakamura, was basically what it was. And my emphatic answer was no. I do not think he will. I do not think he will be at Survivor Series. Now, he did not answer an open challenge from Shinsuke Nakamura, but he did show up at the very end of the show. And I honestly was not expecting that. We'll get into a lot about that today, here today on #WrestleRant Radio tomorrow. A lot of CM Punk stuff to dissect here on the show today. So if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post. I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Let's get right into it. Micah does it from YouTube. Their first question was, what one match in WWE do you cherish the most? This is not because it's timely right now, but John Cena versus CM Punk for Money in the Bank 2011. Still my favorite match of all time. Some matches have come close and are among my favorite matches of all time, specifically because I have seen them live, including Sasha Banks versus Bayley from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2015, and John Cena versus AJ Styles from SummerSlam 2016. But at the end of the day, I still got to go back to Punk and Cena. I watch it at least once every year, and I have for the last 12 years now. Just an instant classic. The story, the aftermath, the match itself, the drama, the suspense, the near falls, the action, everything about it was near perfect, if not perfect. I mean, it wasn't a perfect match. No match really is. But probably that one. I would have to go with Punk and Cena from Money in the Bank 2011 as the match I would cherish the most from WWE's history. His second question, if Bayley is kicked out of Damage Control and turns babyface, would you book her to win the Royal Rumble? I would actually. So I feel like the top two candidates right now to win the Women's Royal Rumble are Bayley and Becky Lynch. Because I feel like the Mania matches next year are either going to be... So, I mean, I feel like we're definitely getting Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley. And I don't really want Becky winning the Rumble again. I guess she could. She could become the first two-time Women's Royal Rumble winner. I don't really want to see that personally. You could set that match up another way. But Becky Lynch has a pretty great chance of winning it again. And Bayley. So you can either do Bayley versus Io Sky one-on-one at WrestleMania, or Bayley versus Io Sky versus Dakota Kai. Now, Dakota Kai's been out hurt, so she really can't factor into the story, and she's been on the show for the last couple of months since Io Sky became champion. But even in terms of the pecking order, Io's the champion, Bayley is a made name, obviously. Dakota Kai, I don't think anyone actually expects her to walk out with the win, or with the championship. It's not even equivalent to like the legacy triple threat from WrestleMania 26, because I feel like at that point, Cody and Ted DiBiase were on the same level playing field. Io Sky and Dakota Kai are not. Dakota Kai and Bayley are not either. So maybe Bayley, or rather Dakota Kai, can side with Io or whatever, which I kind of feel like she will. I would have Bayley win the Royal Rumble. Charlotte's won it before. Becky's won it. Asuka, Rhea, Bianca. You know, all of these women have won it except for Bayley. You know, Sasha's never won it, but of the four horsewomen, she's one of two that hasn't won it, and I would have Bayley win it. I feel like give her moment, have her break out as a babyface. Does she go back to being the Bayley of like 2015, 2016 from NXT, or even from the main roster from 2017, 2018, 2019? Probably not, but maybe a play on that character. I love that, you know, babyface Bayley character. Absolutely fucking loved it. Obviously, he got old by the end there. I don't know if she can play that character as like a 30-year-old woman now. Probably not. I think she's 30. Is she not like 30 up? I don't think she's under 30 at this point. I don't know if that character would really work now. But that being said, I do think that she could go in there and have a great babyface run without even doing that sort of stuff. So anyway, I would have Bayley win the Royal Rumble. Is she kicked out of Damage Control before that or after that? Probably after, honestly. I feel like they could tell the story that she wins the Rumble, and they want her to go after the Raw Women's Champion, go after Rhea Ripley, but instead they have her go after Io, because it's like the whole Batista thing from 2005, where he won the Rumble, he hadn't been kicked out of Evolution yet, but Triple H was kind of pushing him to choose the SmackDown champion, and in the end, he turned babyface and went after his own stablemate. And I feel like we could see the same thing with Bayley going after Io Sky. His third question, now that Survivor Series has ended, what would you say was the best WWE pay-per-view of the year from top to bottom? Great question. I feel like it's got to be WrestleMania. It's either three choices for me. WrestleMania 39, both nights. Elimination Chamber, which was an amazing show. I'm biased also because I was there for that one. The Rumble was fun too. I feel like they've had a really great stretch of pay-per-views this year. It's kind of died down a little bit in recent months, but Survivor Series was a fun show too. To me, it's either Survivor Series, WrestleMania 39, or Backlash, which was basically a B show. I mean, it is a B show, but like a lot like Elimination Chamber, the atmosphere in Puerto Rico that night really made that show special. I would probably still go Mania 39. 39, between the two nights, had three of the best matches all year. In WWE and just in wrestling in general. Between the Intercontinental Championship Triple Threat, the Tag Team title main event on night one, and Rhea versus Charlotte on night one as well. Night two even had Roman and Cody, and that ending was awful, but, you know, the Roman and Cody match itself was great. Same thing with, like, Bianca and Asuka. I really wanted Asuka to win at that point, but that was a great match as well. I don't know if I can go against WrestleMania. It was one of the best top-to-bottom WrestleManias that they have ever had in the last probably, 15, 20 years. So I got to go Mania 39, but Elimination Chamber and Backlash were pretty, banger pay-per-views as well. Those were great shows. Their next question, which CM Punk return was bigger, AEW First Dance 2021 or WWE Survivor Series 2023? Man, that's the million-dollar question. I feel like the WWE diehards are going to say Survivor Series. The AEW diehards will say First Dance 2021. I'm actually going to go with the AEW one because the WWE one, for as amazing as it was, for as perfectly executed as it was, and I feel like it will go down regardless of where we go from here with Punk, that will go down as one of the greatest returns in WWE history. I mean, the guy was gone for 10 years. He came back in Chicago, didn't say a word, perfectly executed. No one really knew if it was actually going to happen considering the circumstances, but it did. Everything about it was just amazing. At the same time, though, everything about that AEW debut was also amazing. And unlike the WWE one, that marked his first wrestling appearance of any kind in 7 years. Like, we never even thought Punk would be back in WWE, sure, but wouldn't even be back in wrestling in general, period. Like, they pretty heavily hinted at him being there in Chicago, and they played the music. He got the music back. The entrance was great. It was like a 7-minute long pop. And the promo that night that he cut was also amazing. So the whole thing was just tremendous. Just such an amazing moment. I got to go with the AEW one, but the WWE one is not far behind. That was an amazing moment in its own right as well. Christopher L. from Facebook, his first question was, he says, hey, Graham, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Within the last 48 hours, the news of CM Punk's return has set the wrestling world abuzz with optimism. While I somewhat feel the same way since I love CM Punk and Phil Brooks, I'm more in the 50% optimistic and 50% disappointed camp. While it is great to see him back in WWE after being banished from AEW, I mean, he got fired, and the list of opponents he has to go against is endless, I can't help but feel disappointed that after all those years that he swore off the company, to just show up in that same company he buried for years, it made me lose a little bit of respect for him for turning his back on all of his morals and word. On top of that, I thought the promo on Monday was flat and corporate, making him look like a two-faced hypocrite and a sellout. Do you agree with me on my sentiment that Phil Brooks is a hypocrite and a sellout, and do you think he is more of a reward or a risk? Now, that's a great question. Listen, I am also a very big Punk fan. Do I lose respect for the guy? I mean, honestly, I feel like if anything, I wouldn't lose respect for him for going back to WWE. After everything he said, people say shit fucking constantly. In this world in general, but especially in wrestling. Did people lose? I feel like people would probably lose more respect for Bret Hart for going back to WWE after that company was essentially responsible for killing his own fucking brother. But you don't really hear people talking about that. I mean, I'm not saying people didn't lose respect for him, but like, who gives a shit? At the end of the day, you're going to go where the money can be made, and regardless of what he said, is he a hypocrite for going back? Sure. So is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, I don't know if he ever said he was never going back, but he heavily hinted at that, and he also said, listen, like he created his own alternative company and took a lot of shots at WWE as recently as January 2022 before going back 2 or 3 months later. And not a lot of people were on his case about that. But he went back. I mean, he had his own personal issue, I guess, in AEW. And him wanted to win the world championship. I mean, give me a fucking break. Obviously, that was a reason. It wasn't the sole reason why he went back to WWE. I'm sure there were a lot of factors. Same thing with CM Punk. So, is he a sellout? Is he a hypocrite? Sure, but like so is most of wrestling. A lot of people say they're never going back here or never doing this, and then they fucking do it anyway. And most people don't even bat an eyelash because they're just happy that they're back. And I'm the same way. I mean, it is what it is. I don't really care about that portion of it, but I do agree, though. What he did say in his promo is just not true. It just wasn't true. I mean, when he said I'm home and all this other sort of stuff, when he said, and I'll talk more about this in depth tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio, but when he said, I miss the fans, I miss the audience, I miss the WWE Universe, blah, 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 that I'm sure is true. I'm sure he did miss the fans. At the same time, though, when he says I'm home, I'm thinking, come on, dude. Like, you're the same fucking guy who 2 years ago said that I left sports entertainment. I left professional wrestling in 2005, and in 2021, I'm back. It's like, dude. So then what, you're back in sports entertainment now? Like, give me a fucking break. And what I'm hoping the plan is, I don't want to defend the promo because I didn't really love the promo. I thought it was good, albeit unspectacular. Definitely disappointing for his first promo back, considering the standards that Punk has set in the past, even in AEW and even in WWE, for the caliber of promos that he would cut in either company. I don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt quite yet. We have to see where it goes, though. I just feel like there's got to be a reason why they either had him say that, knowing it's fucking not true, or he said that himself. And even if he did wanted to say that shit, they have to have Rollins go out there at some point as we get closer to WrestleMania and they build towards that match. And they already planted the seeds at Survivor Series after the showing off the air. They also further planted the seeds with that Rollins line during his promo on Monday when he called Punk a hypocrite. Like, why would he say that without explaining to the audience why Punk is a hypocrite? Because I feel like we are going to get to that at some point. Those who know, but you got to inform the audience who was not following Punk's comments elsewhere or in AEW or whatever, that the guy is fucking lying when he says a lot of the shit that he did about, I always wanted to come back to this place. It's like, no, you fucking didn't, dude. Like, you literally, not even like 10 years ago when he first put up that podcast with Colt Cabana, no. Even as recently as last year, he said this company hasn't changed, and even with Triple H involved, they still play games, blah, blah, blah. One, how would you know if you don't work there or don't watch the product? And two, it's like, if you intend to maybe go back at some point, you probably shouldn't be saying that shit. So a lot of what he said on Raw was just not genuine. It just wasn't. It doesn't make me lose respect for Punk. It doesn't make me turn my back on Punk. It makes me honestly want to see where they go with it from here. If they don't acknowledge any of that, the fact that he is a hypocrite for going back and kind of like, again, I mean, I feel like Seth Rollins should have said that to Cody Rhodes during their feud. Where, again, this guy was taking shots at WWE every opportunity he had for 3 fucking years, and then he went back to WWE, did Cody Rhodes. They didn't really get into that. Punk, it was a much louder shot at WWE. Cody would, take subtle, passive-aggressive shots. CM Punk would just say, I fucking hate them there. Like, I don't intend on going back. They play games. Like, he was pretty loud with those criticisms of the company. And I'm not saying he shouldn't have been. I mean, I probably wouldn't have if that was me, because he probably never expected to go back. But now that he has gone back, he needs to own up to it and not say, oh, listen, I said this in AEW. Like, no shit. A lot of people who watch WWE do not watch AEW, probably has no idea what he's talking about, and are seeing him for the first time in 10 years. But he should acknowledge, for those that fucking know and are not dumb, that, listen, I said a lot of negative things, and either I apologize or I was wrong. Either one would work. He made no mention of that at all in his promo on Monday. No mention at all. I just feel like the guy, he has a lot of, I don't know him personally. It seems like he has a lot of trust issues, and he can't come across as vulnerable to a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure he was, what's the word I'm looking for? Not felt bad about the brawl-out thing from last year, but I'm sure he regrets it. But, he hasn't been really public about it, but he probably should be. Maybe legally he can't discuss it. But, I thought even when he came back earlier this year to Collision, he should have come out and said, listen, I made a lot of dumb mistakes. I really shouldn't have done what I did, and I apologize. Even that audience was well more aware of what was going on than the WWE audience, and even then he didn't make a single mention of it. He made a single shot of the Bucks, which was whatever. What's good for them is good for him. I don't give a shit. But, I was hoping he would come out there and be like, if he wants to be a babyface especially, which he was at that point, and maybe they were trying to tell that story before he got fired, that he was just disingenuous and he was just a heel masquerading as a babyface, blah, blah, blah. And Punk's not a dumb guy. He has to know that people are going to see through the bullshit and know that what he's saying is just not true. Same thing in AEW. Again, he never made mention of the fact that he felt bad for what he did. I think he might have told that once to Mark Ramondi of ESPN in their interview from back over the summer, saying that, you know what, I do really feel bad about what happened in Brawl Out. I shouldn't have done that. Not that the Elite are completely innocent, but he needs to take accountability for his own actions. I didn't hear that then, and I'm not hearing that now. And maybe at some point he will get to that, and I hope he does, either on TV or in interviews or whatever, because if he's not apologetic and he's not taking accountabilities for his own actions, because no matter how right he might be about working with children, to go about it the way that he did, beating people up backstage, just can't fucking do that. And again, he's not going to acknowledge that outright on WWE TV, but the whole I'm home thing just rings hollow, because I just know it's not true. I know he worked for that company for a long time. He worked for WWE for almost 10 years. But like the way that he would, listen, I saw the tweet from one fan saying, like, it was jokingly, obviously, they were saying that, anyone criticizing Punk for saying that I'm home, even after everything that he said about the company in the last 10 years, never grew up in an abusive household, which is probably true. Joking or not, that's probably true. And he probably does feel like he is home, but he didn't really act that way the last couple of years, even when it seemed like he was in a better headspace. So, I don't know. We need to see, words are one thing, the actions reflect how he actually feels, and we'll see what happens going forward. If he's celebrating with the audience and they want him back, that's great. I love that sort of stuff. But he's got to back up his, regret with actual actions, whether it be behind the scenes, in front of the camera, whatever. So, I didn't like the promo. I know I gave a long answer to that question. I didn't really like the promo, but I'm also willing to wait to see where it goes. And maybe I'm just being more forgiving because I like Punk and I don't want to shit on it completely. I mean, it was a good promo, but it was like, and it had some moments in there. But it was also just way too short for his first promo in like a decade. Didn't really leave you wanting, like, all right, is he feuding with someone? Is he going to be in the Rumble? Like, where are we going with this? Blah, blah, blah. It was just weird, so I don't know. We'll see where it goes. His second question was, is complacency or resting on your laurels still a very real thing? What I mean is, do professional wrestlers still put little effort into their work, or do they know of their position within a company and do as little as possible / repeat the same moves in their matches knowing they won't lose their spot? 1,000% that is still a thing. I feel like you could watch any WWE show or AEW show, and you can see people that are just phoning it in. And I'm not a pro wrestler. I don't have to go out there 250 days out of the year to put my fucking body on the line, so if that was me, I'm sure I would do not the same thing, but like I understand to a certain degree, especially like at house shows when you're doing the same shit over and over anyway. On TV, you probably should put forth more of an effort. But, people are very much like that. People have said the Bucks are like that now, Omega's like that. I mean, Orton just came back, he feels rejuvenated. But there was a long period of time where Orton felt like his matches were just him going through the motions. I mean, it doesn't really, especially when they're just completely checked out. Like Dean Ambrose, when he was on his way out, and no fault against him, but it just felt like he was running on autopilot at that point in late 2018, early 2019. And even now, when people know that they're just a big... Brock Lesnar fucking rests on his laurels. I mean, if you looked it up in the dictionary, you will see a picture of Brock Lesnar. The guy doesn't really have to put forth much of an effort. He just makes it blatantly obvious. He doesn't want to do anything. And we know that for a fact from people that he's worked with that have come out and talked about it, saying, I just don't want to do this or that, or I don't really want to do anything that's too risky. Brock's not doing shooting star presses anymore, but he surely could put forth more of an effort in some of these matches. I mean, he is the definition of complacent because he's Brock Lesnar. He has nothing to prove. People will pay for Brock, don't care about how long his matches are. I mean, I do. But regardless, that is absolutely a real thing. And the world in general, like I said earlier with the other question, but especially in wrestling, I mean, it's pretty obvious even when you watch most of these shows. Not with everyone, but definitely with certain people of at the top of the card that really have nothing to lose. I mean, they know, or they have something to lose, but they know they're not going to get punished for just phoning it in on any given week. His third question, when Seth Rollins turned heel in 2014 and had a very entertaining blood feud with Jon Moxley disguised as Dean Ambrose, everything was looking up for him. He even won the Money in the Bank briefcase and had the greatest cash-in of one of my favorite WrestleManias at WrestleMania. You said 35. It was actually 31. I think you're mixing that up with 2015. So it was WrestleMania 31. But anyway, he said, however, after winning the belt, it all went downhill from there. What do you think were the reasons for why Rollins struggled as champion in 2015? And which run do you think did more damage to him? 2015 champ or 2019 champ? Maybe I'm in the minority. I didn't really hate that run as champion at all. Towards the end of that run, with him as the WWE champion in 2015. He was booked very poorly. He lost to fucking Ryback. He was getting pinned in tag team matches. Like, he was getting pinned a lot. I think Kane pinned him one time before one of their championship matches. They did not protect not Dean Ambrose. They did not protect Rollins at all. But he was also all over the show. They would overexpose him with promos and stuff. And listen, I get it. I can understand why a lot of people are not a fan of that run. But he also went in there and had a lot of great fucking matches. Like, even the Sting match for Sting's career pretty much ending that night before coming back in 2020. But, like, he got a pretty good match out of a 56-year-old Sting at Night of Champions or Clash of Champions, whatever it was. The Cena match was excellent at the SummerSlam pay-per-view. Who else did he work with? The four-way at Payback was a lot of fun. Him, Ambrose, Roman, and Randy. He had a pretty good cage match with Randy at Extreme Rules in 2015. The Kane match was whatever. But he had a lot of good matches, I thought, as champion. Even on TV as well. That match with Neville on TV, the Raw match for the WWE title, was amazing. And one of the best near falls I've ever seen. So, I really enjoyed the 2015 champ run. I don't think it did a lot of damage to him, because, again, he was the fucking champion. The run that did more damage was 1,000% the 2019 run. And the weird thing is that during that run, he was a babyface. He was more protected during that run. That's the weird thing. But, like, people just turned on him for a lot of reasons. I mean, he was talking shit online about AEW, about Ambrose, about Will Ospreay, and in interviews as well. He did not do himself any favors. He was out there, waving the flag for WWE a bit too aggressively. Like, you're the champion, I get it. But you don't see him out there now doing that sort of shit. You don't see Roman out. I mean, Roman doesn't really do many interviews at all at this point. But, like, I just feel like that's so phony when these people go out there, and especially at that point when it wasn't fucking true. 2019 WWE was ass. It was not good. But he was out there saying, oh, we got the best roster in the world, and they had a pretty good roster. But it's like, dude, it's just isn't even true. And it did not make him look good. Just don't say that sort of stuff. And again, he was burying other people on social media and just making an ass out of himself. But the way he was booked, his character was not interesting at all. Like, that Brock feud wasn't that good. Their SummerSlam match was great. He worked with Baron Corbin for a few months. The AJ Styles match at Money in the Bank was amazing. I was there for that one in Hartford. But, like, the Corbin matches weren't that great. That was kind of a waste of time. He just was not interesting. And especially after he lost the belt to Brock and then got it back. The Bray Wyatt feud did the most amount of damage. I mean, that wasn't, again, it's not really his fault, that sort of stuff. They weren't really doing much with him character-wise to make him interesting. He was just this bland babyface champion. And the match at Hell in a Cell was one of the worst in company history. And he retained the title that night when no one wanted him to retain the title. People were taking out their frustration on him. He's talked about this before. So, I mean, I don't even think there's a question. That 2019 run did way more damage than anything they did to Rollins in 2015. Because when he came back after his injury in 2015, 2016, the guy was over like Rover. In 2019, it took him a long time to get over the backlash that run had with him as champion. I mean, a couple things. One, they had to turn him heel immediately. And two, he wasn't a babyface again for another 3 years. It took him a long time to get over the bad booking from that run. His last question, or last two questions rather. First one, what exactly is the appeal of Cora Jade? I liked her when she was a skater girl, even though she couldn't even ride a skateboard correctly, he says. And even then, even when she was a babyface, her in-ring ability was sloppy but not terrible. When she turned heel in that awful turn on Roxanne Perez, which saw the board break in half before she even hit Rox's back, I just couldn't get into her or care about her at all. Her matches actually got worse, and her promos and vignettes were absolutely execrable. I don't know what that word is, actually. Showing absolutely no care or passion in either one. Now that she'll eventually be on her way back to the NXT roster, who do you see her feuding with in that locker room, and why are there fans that think so high of her when she hasn't really shown that much progress? I like Cora Jade. I think she gives off the energy and the aura of a star. I do think she has improved. I mean, you have your opinion. I'm not going to say she's out there having instant classics, but I mean, I thought her matches with Roxanne Perez last year were pretty good. She was in the Deadline Iron Survivor match, right? And I thought she had a pretty good showing on that show. I think she had a couple matches with Lyra Valkyria earlier this year that were decent. I mean, she really hasn't been around a whole lot this year because she got hurt and then she had like the boob surgery or the boob job, whatever. So she's been gone since that happened a couple months ago. She's been gone for a while. I wasn't a fan of that Singapore Kane match that she had before she left with Dana Brooke. I mean, Dana Brooke won. I just didn't like that match, really. But no, I don't know. I like Cora Jade. I think she's way better as a heel. She kind of gives off that bad girl energy. As far as why she has so many fans, I mean, she grew up a fan. I mean, the clips have been going around Twitter all week, but the clips of her meeting CM Punk, asking him a question at a Q&A, and all this other sort of stuff. I think she may have even shared the photo of her with Punk on Instagram or whatever the other day, of her like meeting Punk at a house show, taking a picture with him. I mean, she was a big Punk fan, and still is, obviously. So what I'm saying is I feel like a lot of people like her because she grew up a fan. She's a younger girl in that she has a very bright future ahead of her, I think. She's not, I mean, not that if she was 30 or 40 it would make much of a difference. But what I'm saying is she appeals to that younger demographic in NXT that they're trying to appeal to, which is why I think having people like her and Roxanne on that show is so great. Because they're Roxanne's a much better worker, I think. But they appeal to that younger demographic that are currently probably in their late teens, early 20s. That are around the same age as them and grew up liking the same stuff as them, grew up liking CM Punk and grew up watching the Divas division and stuff like that, grew up fans of AJ Lee and whatever. So I can understand why she has a lot of fans. She's also, she's a 20-something young girl. She's not ugly. People like her. They think she's beautiful, whatever. And also she's not, I don't think anyway, very bad in the ring. I think she's perfectly passable. She'll get better in time. She has indie experience, and she's been wrestling for a few years now. So I like Cora Jade. I think she has a bright future. Of the two, I would probably say Roxanne has a brighter future. She's just not just a better babyface, but than Cora Jade. Cora Jade's a really good heel, I think, and her promos are getting better as well, in my opinion. But Roxanne's just a lot better in the ring, and they're around the same age, but Roxanne is just light years ahead of Cora Jade in the ring. She's definitely one of the better women's workers they have in that entire company. But I like Cora Jade personally. If you don't, and you see that she's not that good, that's perfectly fine. As far as who her first feud will be with when she gets back, who do they even have on that show? I mean, maybe Thea Hale? Roxanne Perez, been there, done that. I mean, she's kind of free right now. She's doing the Kiana James thing. That'll be over soon. I don't think it would be her. It shouldn't be Roxanne. Maybe Gigi Dolan. She's got nothing going on right now. They can bring her in to face Gigi, and then she can beat Gigi maybe. I don't know how good the matches would be, but that's an option. They have a lot of women. Maybe Kalani Jordan. She was kind of feuding with Kalani Jordan before she left because, again, she lost that Singapore Kane match to Dana Brooke, and Kalani Jordan was kind of part of that. That storyline. So I could see maybe Kalani Jordan. I could see Gigi Dolan. I'm trying to think who else they have on that. Tiffany Stratton's a heel. Lash Legend's a heel. I don't really care to see Lash Legend really in much anyway. Fallon Henley, maybe that's an option. I mean, NXT is a really deep women's division. Some women are better than others, obviously. Some women are further along, but they're trying. They're getting a lot of people on TV, and they're trying. I can't fault them for that. His last question: which do you think are the most misguided babyface and heel turns in recent memory? Good question. The first two that came to mind for babyface was The Miz, in that I have said this a lot, and I'm probably one of the only people who feel this way. I'm not saying Miz is a better babyface than a heel, but I do feel like Miz can be a great babyface because he's been around for so long. People have that built-in respect for the guy. He does whatever is asked of him. He's not awful. I mean, some of the stuff they have him do is terrible, but he can go in there, have a quality match. He can be a main eventer. He can be a tag team guy, a mid-card guy, what have you, and knock it out of the park most times. And they kind of had that when he turned babyface in 2019. But then they had him lose to Shane again and again and again. He was really over in that role. I don't care what anyone says. Going into WrestleMania and even coming out of Mania, he was really fucking over as a babyface. And they just didn't run with it. They wanted to put over Shane McMahon for whatever fucking reason. It was just awful. It served no purpose. Miz never gave Shane his comeuppance. Kevin Owens did. The Miz did not. So, misguided in terms of, like, they just didn't know what to do with him, and it was a waste of a babyface run for The Miz. And then he did nothing as a babyface for the rest of the year. Most misguided heel turn in recent memory, also around from that same time frame, Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose. I mean, dude, that is one of the worst heel runs I have seen in at least 5 or 10 years. Because the problem with it was that it had so much potential. People had been saying for years, oh, heel Ambrose, he's going to go off. Like, that's the better role that's the role that he's best in. If he, we showed that in FCW and all these other companies pre-WWE, blah, blah, blah. And they turned him heel, and it was right after Roman got sick. The timing was what it was, because they wanted to shock people. I think that was always the end game, was to turn Ambrose heel. But like the gas mask and the shit they were having him say, nothing of what, it just felt like at that point he had just given up. And that's not on him. The shit they were having him do was fucking awful. And it lasted all of like 2 months. They were smart enough to pull the plug and put him back with the Shield before he left in early 2019. But that run was so bad, he was probably already thinking about leaving. But that run single-handedly caused him to leave the company a few months later. And again, I do not fucking blame him. So I gotta go with most misguided babyface run recently was The Miz. And for heel turns, Dean Ambrose. I'm not even really sure if that's what you're asking, but I don't know. My interpretation of it, those were the first two people that came to mind. No L from Facebook. Do you see CM Punk winning the Royal Rumble, even though there's a 50-50 chance of that happening? I do. My early money is on Punk. Cody Rhodes is obviously a strong candidate. I could very well see him winning for a second straight year. I know a lot of people don't like that because they just don't like repeat winners. Listen, it's been over 25 fucking years. We can have a repeat winner every now and again. If it was like Batista or like Triple H or some dumb shit like that, John Cena, then I'm good. But like Cody Rhodes hasn't won it twice yet. He's on the same level as of those individuals that they really want to build him up that way. And he's a future, and he's already kind of main eventing, but like a future world champion in WWE. I would have no issue with Cody Rhodes winning. But if you want to go with a fresher face, quote unquote, because, he's not a fresh face, but he's never won the Rumble before, you go with CM Punk, because I feel like they will do Punk and Rollins at WrestleMania. Does it have to be for the World Heavyweight Championship? No, but it probably would be the better attraction, and that would make for a great night one main event at WrestleMania. So, yeah, I think Punk's a pretty safe bet to win the Royal Rumble. That's probably my current pick, honestly. Justin K. from Facebook, their first question was, Survivor Series will be one of the most memorable shows of the entire year due to Randy Orton's and CM Punk's returns. This show was very much circled around Randy Orton's return and rumors of Punk's return. Do you see CM Punk's return had overshadowed Orton's return? I have been getting that since the moment Cult of Personality was played. Of course it overshadowed Orton's return. I mean, not that that was the point, but they honestly kind of had to do it the way that they did to make people think that CM Punk, otherwise we would have Orton come out as a surprise. Because they went the extra mile. They played fucking both sides of it. I don't know, man. It was really smart. Because I thought the way that they did it, they thought that we were thinking one way, they're one step ahead. They were 2 or 3 steps ahead. Because otherwise, like you said, or like many people said, why wouldn't they just have Orton come out? And then people are disappointed Punk's not there. No, they wanted to tell you ahead of time so people weren't hijacking the show. They didn't want people thinking that Punk was coming out. So they told you ahead of time it's Orton, because it's listen, it's going to be Orton. Do not expect Punk there. He will not be there. And then he was fucking there. I don't know when the Punk stuff came to be. I know the Orton thing was announced on the Monday before Raw. Maybe the Punk thing came to be, after that. It's very possible that the Punk thing, had it not come to fruition when it did, they could have just had the Orton thing. They could have just gone off the show the way that they did without Punk, and it would have been perfectly fine. But the Punk thing was just the cherry on top. So yes, it did overshadow Orton's return, but Orton's, he's an established guy. It's not that big of a deal. If anyone's return, quote unquote, will be overshadowed, it's a guy like him or a Cena or whatever, because they have nothing to lose from being overshadowed. He's not a debuting babyface or whatever. If it was let's say if LA Knight had won the championship and then Punk comes out and closes the show, then yes, that would have overshadowed Knight's big moment or a debuting superstar. But it was CM Punk and it's Randy Orton. They're on the same playing field. It's not that big of a deal. I thought the way they did it, honestly, was perfect. And Orton came out to a massive reaction both that night and on Raw anyway, so it doesn't really matter. His second question. Triple H has done a great job of bringing back some talent since fully taking over creative. Outside of MJF, who do you honestly think could be the next superstar that you could see jumping ship over to the WWE in 2024? Jumping ship as far as an AEW talent, because you mentioned MJF. Honestly, the first name that comes to mind is Andrade. I would assume that in 2021 he signed a 3-year deal, unless they added more time onto it, which is very possible because he missed a lot of time, I think due to an injury late last year, but they were also not using him earlier this year for whatever reason. They probably will tack on time to his contract. But whenever his deal is up at some point next year, he's probably fucking leaving. I mean, honestly, they're not doing nothing with him now, but the guy's in 2 pay-per-view matches. And one of them was, I think both of them were tag team matches. He's just done a whole lot of nothing in that company. Not that he would be a world champion in WWE, but at this point, it's very clear Tony Khan does not see Andrade as a priority. Same thing with Keith Lee and Malachi Black. Maybe Miro. But I just feel like a lot of those guys, Malachi also came in 2021. So if he signed a 3-year deal, which is very possible, and again, he also missed time here and there due to injuries, but if he signed a 3-year deal, very possible that we see him leaving in 2024. I know Andrade also showed up that year, so Keith Lee showed up in 2022. If he signed a 2-year deal, then he could leave this year. Probably he signed a 3-year deal, I would have to imagine, so he's probably not leaving this year. But when I look at that AEW roster, I'm thinking like any of these guys could leave. Wardlow, if he was fucking smart, I don't care what type of push they're giving him now. They fucked Wardlow up. If I'm Wardlow, I'm getting the fuck out of there and going to WWE, personally. I know they're using him now in the MJF storyline. That's great, and I'm intrigued. Overall, long-term, they clearly are not going to use him in any meaningful role. And maybe I would love to be wrong. I just don't see it. So I would hedge my bets if I was him and just leave and go to WWE. So really any of those people. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine. Check out his show on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Does great content. His first question was, so CM Punk is back and MJF is likely / potentially badly injured. This isn't looking good for AEW at the moment, is it? It's not. I mean, AEW has a lot of issues as it is. We're going to talk about QT Marshall in a second. That was your other question in a moment. But man, I mean, they're just having so much bad luck right now. Who the fuck cursed this company? And I like AEW a lot. I love AEW. I love AEW. I love WWE. I want to see all the companies succeed simultaneously. But they're just having a lot of bad luck. I mean, Danielson was out hurt for a bit, and he's coming back, obviously, like next week or whatever. But like Adam Cole's out for a while. They still have a lot of women that are out hurt. It's just not good, man. I mean, they got Adam Copeland, and that's great, and they just signed Will Ospreay. It's not all bad for AEW. I mean, it's not that it's not looking good for AEW. It's just a lot of bad luck at the same time. And we've literally said on WrestleRant Radio, RG's specifically mentioned, like building your company around one guy, it's great in that it gives everything a central storyline. I've said that before, and I think it makes the show better. The negative side is that if he gets hurt, which he fucking did, then it fucks up everything. Because then you don't have a Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion. You don't have a World Champion. All these people gunning for MJF. All of that, poof, goes up in smoke, and you don't have a top babyface anymore. That is what happens when sometimes you build the entire company around one guy. And it's not like they don't have the talent to fill that spot, but they have a lot of talent that are on the cusp of that main event, but haven't really been pushed at that level. People like Swerve and, whatever. They really need to take them to that next level, honestly. Like, if they don't, then the company will not crumble, but they're going to be in some deep shit. So, yeah, it's not looking good right now. I hope they can rebound, but, so far it's questionable as far as their current luck goes. His second question, based on interview clips for the upcoming Iron Claw movie, it seems like the 3 lead actors who played David, Carrie, and Kevin took it pretty seriously. Are you excited for the movie? I am. I actually, believe it or not, have not seen the trailer yet. I don't know why I haven't watched it. It's only like 2 minutes. Maybe I'll watch it later with Alexis. But our current plan actually is to take her father and my father to go see it at the same time. My dad is not a wrestling fan, but he likes that sort of stuff. He saw The Wrestler 15 years ago and loved it. Actually, I don't know if he ever actually saw it until I showed it to him like a couple years ago. But, he has seen movies about wrestling and has enjoyed them, so I think he would like it. And Alexis's father actually knows of the Von Erichs. So, yeah, I think they'll like it. I think we're going to really like it. So I'm looking forward to that movie. We're probably going to go see it right after Christmas, because I think it comes out December 22nd. Sorry, my phone just went off. I think it comes out December 22nd, and that's a Friday. I'll probably be busy that day. Thursday, the 23rd, I'll be busy. 24th, 25th, obviously, and then the 26th, I think is a Tuesday. So if it's $5, and I love my $5 Tuesdays, then we'll probably go see it then. Next question from John. So with QT Marshall leaving AEW at the end of the year, does it seem like Tony Khan is losing a grip on his company from a backstage standpoint? I know people come and go from any line of work, but they seem so out of nowhere for AEW. I mean, the QT Marshall thing I wouldn't really take as a sign that things are going south for AEW, especially after, if the reports are to be believed, and they're pretty credible sources about him, and we'll talk about it later, like, he wants to become a big star elsewhere, and he wants more entertainment stuff, and that's not wrong. I don't know, man. The QT Marshall thing, I just have to laugh at. Listen, I give him a lot of respect for taking a cushy job that he was in AEW, both being he was the player coach. He was at the Nightmare Factory doing stuff. He was behind-the-scenes influence, pretty high up on that pecking order, at least at one point. He was also working pretty consistently when Dark was the thing, and he still gets matches now on Rampage every once in a while. So he left that to take a risk on himself. The difference between QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes is pretty fucking blatant. Cody Rhodes is a star. QT Marshall is not. QT Marshall, I've interviewed him before. He's a nice guy. Seems like a very nice guy. And very helpful behind the scenes. As an in-ring performer, he is not even in the top fucking 30 that either company have. Maybe 40 or... I'm not going to say he's awful. QT Marshall's very talented, but the bar is so high nowadays in both companies. And even if you're not great, like, he's probably better in the ring than fucking LA Knight, but LA Knight is way more of a star and way more marketable than QT fucking Marshall. That's just a fact. He's always wanted to go to WWE. He's made that pretty clear over the years. Maybe he wants to hedge his bets and again try over there now that Cody Rhodes is there. No fucking thanks. Not even in NXT. I just have no desire. If they want to hire him as a coach, then cool. He seems like a great coach and a great person to have behind the scenes. On the air, the QTV crap was fucking awful. The QTV nonsense was just the worst. The guy thought, and even Cody too, I gotta fault him for this as well. The factory nonsense was also awful, but like he thought that him feuding with Cody in 2021 was like a good idea. That Cody QT Marshall feud was an enormous waste of fucking time. That falls on Cody, that falls on QT Marshall, that falls on Tony Khan. They gave him so many opportunities for television time, way more than they needed to. There's so many people that don't even sniff television time in AEW, let alone QT Marshall, who was on the show a lot with that QTV crap. Dragging down Powerhouse Hobbs, trying to make it all about him, and that didn't even lead anywhere. Like, he helped out Hobbs, and Hobbs never even really left the group. He's in the Don Callis family now, but did he ever turn on QTV? I don't remember that. Again, what a waste of fucking time. QT Marshall had nothing to do with Powerhouse Hobbs and should have had nothing to do with him as TNT champion. Why did he drag that down? Killed Wardlow's career? That whole shit was terrible, man. It was fucking awful. I remember when he popped up and helped Hobbs win the title. I'm thinking, what the fuck is this? And again, QT Marshall, again, nothing against him as an in-ring performer. He's just the definition of mediocre. He's a good hand to have in the ring. Every company needs that. But to think he's going to be the next breakout Rock is ridiculous. So, again, back to your question, what my point is. He wanted to leave for those reasons. And listen, I had seen that same report yesterday that not the reason why he left, but CM Punk told Tony Khan, I don't really want QT Marshall and that QTV fucking nonsense on my show. And Punk should not have had as much influence over Collision as he did. But apparently Punk told Tony Khan, I do not want this guy on the show. The QTV shit is awful and it hurt Powerhouse Hobbs. And he's a big Powerhouse Hobbs guy, CM Punk. And guess what? That was the right call. Tony Khan should have thought of that himself and not instead of blaming CM Punk for it. I'm not saying Tony Khan's blaming Punk. Punk's taking the heat. Not really taking the heat because guess what? Everyone agrees that he was right. Whether you like Punk, dislike Punk, he was not fucking wrong. No lies detected. QT Marshall had no business being on that Collision TV show. Keep that shit on Rampage. That shit was terrible. And he thought that kind of hurt his relationship with Tony Khan. Again, okay, if you want to fucking leave over being a baby and not getting TV time, then get over it. You're just not that good. So, if you want to make the case that Khan is losing his grip on the company from a backstage standpoint, we've already had this discussion, but that happened a year ago. When that elite Punk nonsense got out of control and still escalated when Punk came back earlier this year, blame the elite, blame Punk as you should, but Tony Khan deserves an equal amount of blame. Punk should take accountability for his own actions, obviously. But what I'm saying is Tony Khan should have stepped in and said, no, you can't run the show. No, you're not an EVP. No, you can't ban people from the show. QT Marshall, honestly, sure. But like Matt Hardy, Christopher Daniels, like, why are you banning them from the show? That's ridiculous. Tony Khan should have put his foot down and said, listen, this is ridiculous. We're not fucking banning people from the show. You don't have administrative power. I'm the boss. You need to respect me. And Punk clearly did not respect Tony Khan. I think that much is pretty fucking clear. Anyway, at Iwagu91, his first question from Twitter was, first off, I hope you enjoyed Thanksgiving. Thank you. Do you think that Swerve Strickland will win the Continental Classic? I do, just because I feel like you don't have him beat Adam Page twice and then follow up with him losing in this random-ass tournament. Like, don't even put him in it at that point. I know you could have Danielson win or Moxley or whoever. Jay White maybe. It's got to be Swerve. Swerve cannot go in there beating Adam Page twice in the best match of his career to date and then just lose this random Ring of Honor. It's a double-edged sword because I don't really want Swerve as like the Ring of Honor champion and all this other shit. I honestly feel like that's a step down. The guy should be gunning for the World Championship. Unless they can find a way out of this where he like, maybe not Adam Page, but like someone cost him the win in the end and it builds to a third match with him and whatever, or it kicks off his next program, then maybe I'd be okay with him losing and not winning it. He should win, but I also don't want him tied down to doing New Japan stuff and Ring of Honor stuff. Like, no, he should be the world champion right now. He should probably be the one to dethrone MJF. Samoa Joe's great, don't get me wrong. Samoa Joe winning it, I'm all for it. But Swerve at this point belongs to that level and not at this mid-card international title bullshit, in my opinion. Their second question. Jey Uso stated in an interview that he intends to pursue the Intercontinental Championship held by Gunther. What are your thoughts? I mean, he should. Jey Uso is so fucking over, he shouldn't beat Gunther. But the funny thing is, and I've been saying this a lot lately, Jey Uso is so over that a match at Mania with Jimmy, which is where they're going obviously, is so beneath him at this point. Because Jimmy is not as good as Jey, it's pretty evident, and is not remotely as over as Jey is. Jimmy gets good heat. Jey is really, really over on his own. I mean, it's not even close. I just feel like a Jimmy match at Mania is honestly a step down for Jey Uso. A Gunther match would be better for him in Mania, but I don't know if that's going to happen either. I would not give the Intercontinental Championship to Jey Uso. I would still have it be Chad Gable. But Jey Uso and Gunther is a one-off. Maybe Jimmy cost him that match as well. Hey, sign me the fuck up. Your thoughts on the reason why Will Ospreay chose to sign with AEW? I already talked about this last week, but I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, he wanted to stay in England. I feel like that was the number one choice. I feel like he might have entertained the offer from WWE more if he was able to move or able to stay in the UK. WWE doesn't do that, though, unless they have NXT Europe, which is way beneath Will Ospreay. And I don't even think NXT Europe as a brand is even really necessary. I feel like they're not mentioning anything about it because it's probably not happening at this point. But he wanted to stay in England. He already has the built-in. It's a safer bet to go to AEW. It was not safe to go to WWE. I still think he would have done well. But guess what? He's young enough to where he can go to AEW and WWE at some point down the road if he wanted to. It's still very possible. So him going to AEW is probably the better bet. WWE is the bigger company, is the hotter company right now, sure. Way hotter. But he can also be the biggest star in AEW and then at some other point, like MJF, still go to WWE down the road. No doubt about it. His second question, or rather the next question from @noob_n_co.tv. Your thoughts on the finish of the Women's War Games match? It seems like Bayley might be the fall women in this situation and get kicked out of Damage Control. Does that mean Bayley might face Io Sky at WrestleMania 40? Yeah, I do. I feel like that's the long-term story they're going with here is Io versus Bayley. That is the match to do. They'll turn Bayley babyface, and they should. At one point, I wanted to see Io break out as a babyface, but Bayley has not been a babyface for so long, it would feel fresh. And Io has her own little faction right now, especially after Bayley gets ousted. So I have no issue with that. The only thing I didn't like about the Women's War Games match, aside from all the excessive amount of weapons and shit, they overdo that every year with the men and the women. The only thing I didn't like about it was that Becky Lynch won for her team. Why? She's not even feuding with Damage Control. Like, give Bianca the win, or even Charlotte or Shotzi. Shotzi was the one feuding with Bayley for so long. Bianca had Bayley, fucking Becky, a lot of B's. Becky was the one that had the initial beef with Damage Control a year ago, sure, but not recently, so I thought that was dumb. But the actual match was very good, and the finish with Bayley taking all the finishers was well done, and it further plants the seeds for a breakout babyface turn for Bayley, in my opinion, before they do Bayley and Io at WrestleMania. Their second question, what are your thoughts on CM Punk's return to WWE? I'm very excited for the return, but what do you think of his promo on Raw? I'm glad that he didn't mention anything about AEW, Tony Khan, the Elite, Brawl Out, or Brawl In. He just came back. Yeah, I already talked about the promo earlier. I didn't love the promo. Loved the return itself at Survivor Series. Didn't love the promo. It's one night, second night in, whatever. He'll be fine. It's CM Punk. If the run ends up being a bust or he fucks himself over again, we'll talk about it, but we're far from that right now, I think. As far as, like I said earlier, I was not disappointed that he did not mention AEW or the Bucks. I don't think he should. That shit doesn't even really matter. Regardless of whether he wants to move past it or not, it's not building to anything. Like him taking a shot at AEW, what does that even really build to? It's not, it's not leading to him against the Bucks. If he was still in AEW, then sure. But he's not. And we're not going to get those matches. So why even bother? I do think he should have apologized. And he also said, oh, I've changed. Okay, how have you changed? Like, you just got in a fight that cost you your job 2 months ago, pal. Like, how have you changed in less than 90 days is what I would love to know. His next question, with MJF injured, what is the current state of the AEW World Championship? Do you think Tony Khan should relieve him of the title because he can't compete against Samoa Joe at World's End in that condition? The report was that he's still going to compete at World's End. So I would be honestly surprised that he would drop it before then. I would be surprised if he said, I'll defend it at World's End, and then Tony Khan, unless they find out it's a lot worse than it is, and it sounds like it's bad, but maybe if they find out it's worse or whatever, at that point, they would then take the belt off of him and figure out another way to crown a new champion at World's End, sure. It might be a Cody situation where he has a torn labrum, but he can still work. So it might be a very limited match, a storytelling-esque match, with MJF and Samoa Joe, where I would honestly just give the belt to Joe. I would have given the belt to Joe anyway, but he should definitely win it now. If Joe can't beat a fucking legitimately one-armed MJF, that's pretty bad. So, yeah, I would give the belt to Joe. If he can't compete, if it's one of those Cody Rhodes type situations where it can't get any worse, and they're like, fuck it, we'll just have him wrestle, then do the match. If you can't, then figure something else out. But I guess we'll find out more tonight on Dynamite. And regardless of how injured he is, I would still give the belt to Samoa Joe at that pay-per-view, at least in my opinion. And their last question here, with Camille becoming a free agent, which wrestling promotion might sign her, WWE or AEW or TNA? Also, what is going on with the current booking of Natalia Markova? As of late, she was red hot when she came to NWA. Now she has zero direction. Natalia Markova, real quickly, I know no one really watches NWA except for like me and Noob apparently, but she's very good, and I could see her in the other companies. We've talked about her before. They clearly do not know what to do with her because she's gotten a million title shots in the NWA. For the Women's World title, for the TV title, for the tag titles. Lost every single one. So I don't know what's going on with what they're doing with her. The NWA clearly does not have any plans for really anything. They just do shit on a whim. As far as Camille goes, I would have said WWE. Honestly, if you asked me like 3 months ago, I would say Camille for WWE, absolutely. She's improved a lot. She had a really good run in NWA, really good run as women's champion. Every match was better than the last for the most part. The problem now is they just signed Jade. So you might be thinking, oh, what, they can't have two, female giants on the roster? Honestly, yeah, no, they probably shouldn't because she won't stand out as much as she would if Jade wasn't there. They got Camille now, or they have Jade now. They already have Rhea and Raquel. They brought back Nia Jax. They have a lot of like powerhouse women, especially on Raw right now. Could they bring her into SmackDown? Sure. I mean, they could also bring her into NXT, but Jade might even go to NXT. So I think, honestly, for Camille, I would put her in Impact. I think TNA is the way to go. AEW, I'm not convinced they would know what the fuck to do with her. I mean, they sign people all the time, and they do well for a couple months, and a lot of them just flounder. Even Toni Storm, it took her a long time to really find her footing in that company until she arrived on what she's doing now. Got to the point of what she's doing now. I think Camille, they don't really have a lot of women like her in Impact. They have Jordan Grace, sure, but she can work with Trinity, and I don't know about Mickie James and what her status is, or Deonna Purrazzo for that matter. But I would like to see Deonna Purrazzo, I talked about before. She should go to AEW or WWE. Camille, I think, should go to TNA. I think she would stand out, get a nice run for herself, and maybe about 6 months to a year, it might become more clear that there's a spot for her in the major companies. At E13A from Twitter, do you think AEW is becoming like New Japan Pro Wrestling? And he's asking this because that was the report from the QT Marshall side of things, that he didn't like the fact that AEW was headed in a more New Japan-esque direction. No, I mean, listen, AEW has been New Japan since day fucking one, with the excessive amount of factions, and that's fine. It's not my cup of tea personally. WWE has a lot of factions now too. But like, AEW has been New Japan-esque since the first day, and honestly, I feel like they moved away from that. Not to say they should be New Japan light, but they have done more entertainment stuff, and a lot of that stuff just hasn't been funny. I honestly do want to see more entertainment stuff in AEW, but it's got to be the right balance. It's got to be more storytelling stuff, but told in the right way. It's funny, I don't think AEW is becoming like New Japan. It already was New Japan. It might be becoming WWE light with a lot of the comedy and those shenanigans and whatever being done wrong by AEW. They're not just doing it the right way. So I think that whole, it's becoming New Japan, it's all about the matches. Dude, where the fuck have you been for the last 4 years? It's been very storyline or very match-based for the past 4 years. Now, has the AEW product evolved from what it was in 2019? Yes. Has it evolved for better or worse ways? Yes. And honestly, more so for the worse in terms of their presentation and how they handle things and whatever. But it's not like they were telling a lot of great stories at the beginning of AEW either. I mean, they had the same issue then as they do now. They just don't. It's not that they don't tell stories. It's just that because they've had a lot of great ones, but it's honestly like not WWE is the way to go, and how they tell stories is the only way to do it, because it's not. They should tell stories other ways. But there were a lot of shows early on in AEW's history where it was really just about the matches. It felt like they had a direction for the world title and the elite, but that's about it. A lot of other people did not have direction, and it's not that much different now. So the whole it's becoming New Japan thing, the whole QT Marshall thing, it is a blow to their company from a backstage standpoint, but his reasons for leaving, I don't blame Tony Khan for not giving him what he wants. I will defend Tony Khan on that one. QT Marshall sounds like a clown. I mean, if he wants to leave to become a bigger star, great on you. I commend you for it. I just don't see it working at all. Let's be honest and call a spade a spade. I don't see that working at all. Unless you go to TNA and bring your QTV shit over there. At the Wrestle Guy, Sal from Twitter's first question was, other than Rollins and Reigns as the obvious front runners for anticipated CM Punk feuds, who else is high on your list to see feud with Punk? I mean, there's so many people. I feel like AJ Styles would be awesome. AJ's just not relevant these days and hasn't been for a long time, so it probably won't happen. Especially if Punk's supposed to be a part-timer, which is ironic, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. But with Punk, him and AJ, I know, do not like each other, so reliving that would be great. Him and Owens, I feel like, could produce a lot of great promos. Him and Rollins, you mentioned. Him and Cody at some point could be a lot of fun. Him and, like, LA Knight could be really interesting as well. I'm trying to think who else they have. Him and Roman, obviously, you already mentioned him. Doing something with Cena, maybe not one-on-one, but, like, teaming up with Cena would be a cool thing. Him and Balor would be fresh. Who else do they have that's like, oh, I would love to see him work with that guy? Trying to think of the WWE roster. Like, him and Gunther would be interesting. I would love to see that. Gunther would probably kill the guy, but hey, it would be fun to watch. Him and Miz, I know they feuded a lot back in the day, but him and Miz, just because of the bad blood they've had since Punk left, would be fucking funny. Apparently they buried the hatchet, but it would be funny if they acknowledged that on the show. Just shit like that would be really interesting. I don't know. I just feel like that would be really funny. That's probably the only Miz feud you'll hear me saying, oh, I'm actually looking forward to that at this point. Anyway, second question was, Cody Rhodes was the first to declare for the Rumble. I was thinking they can go to the Shawn Michaels 2010 route, where Cody obsesses over the title and getting to Reigns that way. Only to lose the Rumble, hit his breaking point, and does anything in his power to get Reigns anyway. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I don't think Cody Rhodes needs to win the Rumble, but I also would not be upset if he did. Unlike a lot of people, I don't care for Cody anyway. In this instance, it's all about circumstance. I would not care if Cody won it 2 years in a row. A lot of people want fresh winners every year. I don't want a fucking, like, Triple H winning it. Like, I mean, he's not going to, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there was a point where we were getting Cena winning it, Triple H, Orton, Batista. Like, the fuck is this, 02? Like, come on. Edge won it again a couple years ago. Brock, like, come on, dude. Like, we need newer faces. I know Cody and CM Punk are not 20 years old, but they haven't won the Rumble before. So I would rather Punk win it. I would prefer Punk winning it, but Cody winning it would be fine. I would prefer the way that you just said, him not winning the Rumble, but finding a different way to get to Roman at WrestleMania. I feel like that would tell the better story and go a different direction than what they already did earlier this year. At Billmeister 20 or Billmeister 88, I don't know why I said 28. Last two questions for the episode. His first one was, how do you think WWE handled the CM Punk return? I thought it was genius. Also, do you think we'll get the Rollins and Punk trilogy? Yeah, like I said earlier, I thought the Punk return itself was perfectly executed. It came off amazingly well. The promo, not so much. A lot that I had an issue with there, but the return itself was amazing. As far as the Punk-Rollins trilogy, I don't know if we'll get a trilogy out of it, but I think we're definitely getting a match between them at some point, and probably as soon as WrestleMania. I would hold off on Mania to do that match. Have Punk in the Rumble, have Punk win the Rumble. Rollins calls him out on his bullshit. Punk goes like a heelish way, or says, and that's not true. I think that'd be the way to go, personally. So, yeah, I feel like that's definitely the match they'll do at WrestleMania. Absolutely. Whether it's for the championship or not, but it probably will be for the World Heavyweight Championship, and it probably should be. Last question. When do you think WWE will pull the trigger on Damian Priest cashing in, and do you think it's for the World Championship or the Universal title? I think it's going to be for the World Heavyweight Championship, so he's not cashing in on Roman. And I really, 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 really hope Damian cashes in successfully. He's held it long enough. He's worthy of a world title run. We've already had a lot of failed cash-ins in the last 5 years. Do not add Damian to that list. There really have not been a lot of memorable cash-ins for the right reasons, aside from Big E. So I would have Priest cash in and win the championship. I just don't know. I wouldn't do it until after Mania, because I don't think there's a time to do it between now and Mania where it makes sense. If he cashes in on Roman, he's not winning. I feel like Cody's beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I don't think he should cash in on Cody. We've seen Cody and Damian a lot. in the last couple of months at Crown Jewel and on Raw. We're done with that. I think Cody might go to SmackDown anyway. So that really leaves the World Heavyweight Championship. You could have a scenario where, people have said, oh, what if we get Punk and Rollins and Mania and Priest cashes in halfway through or towards the end? I wouldn't do that. And we already got a WrestleMania cash in, and yeah, you could do it twice or more than once anyway. But nothing will ever top that Rollins cash in from 2015. And I just don't know. I love Damian Priest. I don't know if Damian's that guy where people would lose their minds and really be satisfied if they closed Mania with a new World Heavyweight Champion on night one and it's Damian Priest. That to me just does not feel like a WrestleMania ending. Now, if Punk wins the championship or Rollins retains, and then Priest takes the championship from them on like the next night's Raw, which again we've seen before, or like soon after, that would be fine. But I think you have a unique concept here, a real opportunity to have Priest hold on to it until like next year's Money in the Bank. We've never seen anyone hold the contract for a full calendar year. Have him hold it until next June or July. Have him cash in ahead of time and announce it for the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, regardless of who the World Heavyweight Champion is at that time. It could be Punk and Damian Priest. Or probably not Rollins and Priest again, which we've also seen a few times. That's what I would do personally. So I don't think he cashes in before Mania. I am going to say he will cash in successfully. We've had a lot of unsuccessful cash-ins. Not to say they won't do that, but I really fucking hope they don't. And he will do it after WrestleMania. Probably not at Mania. I wouldn't do it at Mania. Either the night after Mania on Raw or like in April or May or whatever. Or like I said, you do something they've never done before and have him hold it for a full year. And like the 15, 20 years they've been doing Money in the Bank, they have never had anyone hold it for a full year and cash in on the same show where they won it a year earlier. That's what I would do with Damian Priest. They have that opportunity and they can do that next year. Will they do it? Probably not, but that's what I would do. And that's going to do it, guys, for today's very jam-packed episode of #AskGSM, episode 522 for November 29th, 2023. Thank you guys so much for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.